Welcome to Weekly News Highlights, where we wrap up your week with a glimpse back into what went on over the past week. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. The 18th UN General Assembly took place in New York this week. President Yoon Suk Yeol told the UN that arms collaboration with Russia and North Korea is considered a direct provocation to his country. The U.S. Federal Reserve this week left its benchmark interest rate unchanged for the second time in its past 3 meetings. But the central bank signaled a fresh rate rise this year and fewer cuts in 2024. And the Hangzhou Asian Games in China is in full swing now. We take a look at games and matches you must not miss. President Yoon Suk Yeol delivered his second speech to the UN on Wednesday. He once again used the international stage to lash out at Russia and North Korea for their potential arms deal. Yoon also called for reform for the UN Security Council, where Russia holds veto power. Our correspondent Arirang has this coverage.
President Yoon Suk Yeol says a reform may be due for the United Nations' most powerful body on global security, expressing Seoul's firmest stance yet against Russia's potential arms cooperation with North Korea and its ongoing invasion of Ukraine. In his speech to the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday, Yoon said if Pyongyang acquires the information and technology needed to enhance its weapons of mass destruction, in exchange for supplying Moscow with conventional weapons, this would amount to a direct provocation threatening the peace and security of both Ukraine and South Korea.
세계 평화의 최종적 수호자여야 할 유엔 안보리 상임이사국이 다른 주권 국가를 무력 침공해 전쟁을 일으키고 전쟁 수행에 필요한 무기와 군수품을 안보리 결의를 정면으로 위반하는 정권으로부터 지원받는 현실은 자기 모순적입니다.
He said Seoul, its allies and its partners will not stand idly by. A presidential official told reporters there could be various economic, diplomatic and military pressure points to block Russia and North Korea from substantial arms cooperation. Yoon further said the call to reform the Security Council would receive broad support. The Security Council's 5 permanent members include Russia and China, with both countries critically hindering collective action with their veto powers. The idea of expanding the representation of non-permanent member countries or removing the right to veto has been gaining currency, with the leaders of the United States, Japan, Ukraine and the European Union endorsing the move in their own General Assembly speeches this year. A UN official said the president was pointing out how the Security Council's gridlock has directly affected South Korea's security and the impact of the Ukraine war to spur worldwide crises in food, energy and economic security. As a non-permanent member of the United Nations for a 2-year term beginning next year, Yoon expressed his intention to take a responsible and principled role in international peace and security.
The Camp David security cooperation system between South Korea, the US and Japan will be in active operation, dealing with international security issues such as the North Korean nuclear issue and the Ukraine war.
Furthermore, Yoon reiterated his pledge to roll out comprehensive support for Ukraine under Seoul's Ukraine Peace and Solidarity Initiative, and development assistance of around $2.3 billion in long-term low-interest loans for reconstruction projects. President Yoon said going forward, world leaders share the responsibility of passing on to future generations an international order grounded in justice and the rule of law for freedom, peace and prosperity. He said South Korea, together with the UN, will readily take on this responsibility. Arirang, Arirang News, New York.
Also during the speech, President Yoon set out his plan for global prosperity by tackling certain divisions between developed and developing countries. He also spent much of his New York trip convincing world leaders that Busan is the ideal host for the 2030 World Expo. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
President Yoon Suk Yeol at the podium of the UN General Assembly on Wednesday said the word division 13 times during his 15-minute speech. The frequency of the use of the word highlights President Yoon's ambition to make South Korea a global contributor, helping developing economies close the gap with other nations.
오늘날 전례 없는 글로벌 복합 위기 속에서 안보는 물론 경제, 기술, 보건, 환경, 문화 등 모든 분야에 걸쳐 국가 간 격차가 커지고 있습니다.
According to President Yoon, South Korea will tackle 3 specific divisions: infrastructure development, the impact of climate change, and digital capabilities. The developmental gap refers to countries that lack essential infrastructure for living, such as clean water and sanitation systems. To achieve this, South Korea will raise its official development assistance budget by 40% in 2024. To address the climate change gap, South Korea will scale up its Green ODA to assist countries vulnerable to climate change and has promised $300 million to the Green Climate Fund. It's also seeking to set up the carbon-free alliance with nations that are willing to promote the adoption of carbon-free energy. In terms of digital divide, which President Yoon called a major cause of economic division between nations, South Korea will actively support digital transformation for lower-income economies. In addition, it will be a leader in the establishment of an international organization under the UN to discuss and set forth rules regarding digital ethics.
The proactive commitment to actively engage in solving issues in the global south demonstrates a fundamental shift in South Korea's foreign policy and diplomacy since President Yoon took office. Efforts to bridge the gap will be tailored to each partner country, resulting in tangible outcomes.
The president wrapped up his speech with another push for Busan's World Expo 2030 bid, tying it together with the nation's motivation to step up as a globally contributing nation.
대한민국은 이제 유라시아 대륙과 태평양을 연결하는 관문인 부산에서 2030년 엑스포를 개최함으로써 글로벌 책임 국가의 역할을 적극 수행하고자 합니다.
He added that the Busan Expo will serve as a platform to spread freedom in the spirit of solidarity, through which the world's citizens can overcome crises and challenges together. 1 year ago, President Yoon emphasized freedom and solidarity here at the UN. And since then, he has fostered stronger relations with like-minded nations. Now, for this year, as he commits to bridging the mentioned divisions, he has set out measures to put his vision into even more practical actions. Kim Dami, Arirang News, New York.
Continuing his drive to promote universal digital rights and ethics in the world since last year, President Yoon Suk Yeol during his UN trip set out a digital bill of human rights. He also shared his wish to establish an international body to oversee the move toward a digital future. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
President Yoon Suk Yeol has declared a Digital Bill of Rights in New York and aligned with the United States as a value-based partner in the future of artificial intelligence amid the polarizing impact of digitalization and the global race for technological supremacy. The South Korean leader on Thursday spoke at New York University's Digital Vision Forum for a second straight year, where he set out 5 guiding principles for the so-called New York Initiative to serve as a compass to navigate the era of deepening digitalization.
디지털 격차가 인간의 존엄을 훼손하거나 또 늘어나는 가짜 뉴스가 민주주의와 자유를 위협하지 않을지 걱정의 목소리도 커지고 있습니다. 이처럼 디지털 심화로 나타나는 실존적 위험은 이제 더 이상 미룰 수 없는 시급한 문제입니다. 디지털은 국경이 없고 연결성과 즉시성을 가지고 있습니다. 그러기에 국제적으로 통용되는 보편적 질서가 중요합니다.
The principles call for technology to be developed and used to expand the dignity, value, freedom and rights of individuals, rather than reinforce discrimination and prejudice. Yoon said fair access and opportunity for digital use must be guaranteed to create economic and social value, while preventing individual harm and the spread of disinformation. He further called for investment in research and development, talent pools, and regulatory changes to enable innovation that drives prosperity for humanity. Lastly, Yoon reissued this call made at recent global summits and at the UN General Assembly the previous day for multilateral efforts to close the digital divide between the advanced and developing economies to ensure peace and shared prosperity in the world. The government plans to announce the Bill of Rights and encourage major partner countries and international organizations to adopt the principles. South Korea's push to establish an ethical, rules-based digital order is all the more crucial as major economies vie for influence over global norms and standards, according to Choi Sang-mok, Yoon Senior Economic Secretary. In that regard, as Seoul expands its value-based cooperation with Washington, Yoon also signed a Memorandum of Understanding with NYU to jointly develop world-class artificial intelligence with 3 Korean institutes. Korea and the US will each invest some $45 billion over 5 years.
The partnership indicates that we have set out the path for cooperation across the entire business process in AI, from human resources training to research and development to market commercialization. In short, the foundation for solidarity in AI has been established between Korea and the US.
Going forward, President Yoon said South Korea will play its part in establishing global digital norms and striving for digital innovation in collaboration with the world to maximize freedom and welfare for all of humanity. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, New York.
Other prominent world leaders also delivered their own speeches at the UN. U.S. President Joe Biden criticized Pyongyang for breaking UN Security Council resolutions through its relentless missile provocations. And Ukrainian President Zelensky also made it to the UN podium for the first time since Russia's aggression against Ukraine began in February, lambasting Russia for weaponizing food and energy. Our Choi Min-jung has more.
U.S. President Joe Biden has condemned North Korea's missile provocations during his speech at the United Nations General Assembly. Addressing world leaders in New York on Tuesday local time, Biden called out North Korea for violating UNSC resolutions, but still left some room for diplomacy.
We condemn the DPRK's continued violation of UN Security Council resolutions, but we are committed to diplomacy that will bring about the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
The president also said the world must remain united in defending Ukraine against Russia's aggression.
No nation wants this war to end more than Ukraine, and we strongly support Ukraine in its efforts to bring about a diplomatic resolution that delivers just and lasting peace.
Speaking at the UN General Assembly for the very first time since the war began, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of weaponizing everything from food and energy to abducted children in its fight against Ukraine. Zelensky also drew attention to tens of thousands of children reportedly kidnapped by Russia.
But time goes by. What will happen with them? What will happen to them? Those children in Russia are taught to hate Ukraine, and all ties with their families are broken. And this is clearly a genocide.
According to an expert, Zelensky's speech was intended to highlight that this matter should be of major concern to UN member states.
Zelensky's point there is that civilians, that everyday people in Ukraine, people just going about their lives, are the ones who have been bearing the heaviest brunt of this war.
Zelensky pointed out that more than 140 states and international organizations have supported Ukraine fully or in part. He also stressed that the war is not only about Ukraine, as the world needs solutions and measures that will stop all forms of weaponization used by Russia against Ukraine and potentially by other aggressors. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Groundwork for a summit between the leaders of South Korea, China, and Japan is underway. A National Security Office official said Tuesday that high-level officials of South Korea, China, and Japan are set to meet here in Seoul later this month, ringing the bell for the start of the preparation process for a trilateral summit. Seoul's foreign minister also said Tuesday that Deputy Foreign Minister Chung Byung-won will meet with his Chinese and Japanese counterparts on the 26th. The three sides will discuss a variety of topics related to three-way cooperation, as well as a future direction. Now, the summit could take place by the end of the year. Before that, a foreign ministerial meeting will likely come first, and the last three-way summit took place in China back in 2019. Russian leader Vladimir Putin will visit China next month for the third Belt and Road Forum, giving him an opportunity to sit down for summit talks with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Putin and Xi will sit down for talks for the first time since March. Putin accepted Xi's invitation while meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi during Wang's 4-day visit to Russia for their latest high-level talks between Beijing and Moscow. That's when the two leaders sat down in Moscow to show off their united front against Western countries. Now, their summit talks are seen as Putin's latest effort to solidify the partnership between Russia, North Korea, and China, as Moscow itself is isolated in the international community more than ever due to the prolonged Ukraine crisis. Putin's China trip will be his first overseas since March, when the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Putin for alleged war crimes involving accusations that Russia abducted Ukrainian children. The U.S. Federal Reserve on Wednesday decided to leave its key borrowing rates unchanged. But the central bank's chief, Jerome Powell, noted a rate hike could come later this year because its fight against inflation is not over yet. Our Park Gon-woo has the story.
The interest rate gap between South Korea and the U.S. remains unchanged following the U.S. Fed's latest decision to freeze interest rates for the second time this year. After a 2-day Federal Open Market Committee meeting, the U.S. Fed on Wednesday decided to freeze its key interest rates in the 5.25% to 5.5% range. South Korea's central bank kept its rate at 3.5% in August, meaning the gap between the two countries will stay in the 1.75 to 2 percentage points range, at least until authorities make their next announcement on interest rates on October 19th. Speaking at a press conference, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the latest decision to freeze rates is in line with its goals of achieving maximum employment and dampening inflation to 2% over the long run. And he hinted at the likelihood of additional rate hikes down the road. South Korea's Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho, in a meeting on Thursday, focused on Mr. Powell's remarks about the possibility of interest hikes.
Following the Fed's decision, it seems that there is a high possibility that high interest rates will remain longer, along with increased volatility in the global financial markets. The government and Bank of Korea will be on high alert to address the situation.
The Bank of Korea also said future rate hikes by the Fed are possible. The Bank of Korea's Vice President Yoo Sang-dae said the bank will monitor how these monetary policies will affect the financial market for both Korea and globally. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
The Hangzhou Asian Games in China is officially underway with the opening ceremony on Saturday. For a rundown of what events and athletes to keep an eye on, we have our sports editor Paul Neat here in the studio. Welcome, Paul.
Hello there, thank you.
So, Paul, I know the Asian Games is mostly about athletics and individual sports, but there are still a lot of, team events like football, and especially for South Korea's men's football team, it's more than just gold that's at stake, right?
Yes, that's right. It's a chance to earn a medal, of course, but it's also the chance to become the pride of a nation. It's also the chance for Korea's male athletes, including footballers, to earn military exemption. And luckily for them, South Korea has started the group stage very strongly. Thursday's match against Thailand, the second of 3 games, ended 4-0. This followed the group stage opener on Tuesday, when Korea ran out 9-0 winners over Kuwait, meaning Korea have already qualified for the round of 16 with 1 game to spare. South Korea won gold in both 2014 on home soil, beating North Korea in extra time, and in 2018 in Indonesia, beating Japan, also in extra time. And with a strong squad this time around as well, Korea will be the favourites to make it 3 in a row. The focus in 2018 was on a certain Son Heung-min earning his military exemption so he could continue his career in Europe. This time, though, it seems to be around Paris Saint-Germain midfielder Lee Kang-in, who's seen as Korea's brightest prospect. The final group stage match for Korea is against Bahrain on Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Korea time before the knockouts begin in the middle of next week.
Well, speaking of being the pride of a nation, being world #1 in something will just mean that for badminton star An Se-young, right? She'll be looking to improve her 2018 performances, correct?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, she said recently that she was not a complete player back then, and she's addressed her shortcomings. But competition will be stiff as the top 5 and 8 of the top 10 players in the women's singles are from Asia and will be at the Asian Games. Anne has won multiple international titles so far this year and has the better head-to-head records against some of her main rivals, including Japan's Akane Yamaguchi and Chen Yufei of China. Badminton gets underway on September 28th and will run until October 7th. There are 7 gold medals up for grabs in total, but Anne isn't the only Korean star taking part in the badminton. There are 20 in total, 10 men and 10 women.
Now, Paul, we have to talk about Woo Sang-hyul, who became known as the so-called, smile boy during the Tokyo Olympics 2 years ago. What can we expect from him this year then?
Confidence, I think, and hopefully more smiling. Woo recently achieved one of his lifelong goals, that being to win the Diamond League final. The timing of it is perfect too, with the Asian Games coming up shortly after. Woo is also a former world indoor athletics champion, and one particular battle to keep an eye on will be between him and Mutaz Essa Barshim of Qatar, a 3-time world champion and 2021 Olympic gold medalist. Barshim was absent from the recent Diamond League final, but Woo says that competing with him keeps him on his toes. Barshim won gold at the World Championships last year, Woo silver. Who also won silver at the 2018 Asian Games, and so at the age of 27, this could be his last chance to win ASEAN gold. The men's high jump begins on Monday, the 2nd of October, with the final just 2 days later.
And another athlete who has become another household name in recent years is the freestyle swimmer Hwang Seon-woo, right? Let's talk about him.
Yes, he's made his intentions for the Asian Games very clear indeed. In what will be his main event, the men's 200-meter freestyle, Hwang says he's aiming to break Sun Yang's Asian record. Hwang is only 0.03 seconds behind his Asian record, and the aim is to win gold and beat that. But it's not just the 200 metres. Hwang will also take part in the 4x200 metre freestyle relay and the 100 metre freestyle singles. Hwang is, of course, a national record holder and continues to break his own records. But after falling short in Tokyo, the task at hand now is to turn records into medals.
And finally, esports is finally making its Asian Games debut. Now here, Korea has to do well, right?
Oh, for sure. And Faker in particular is seen as the best League of Legends player of all time. Esports is seen as a 2-horse race between Korea and China. As China won the Road to Asian Games East Asia tournament, it has qualified for the playoffs. Korea will need to go through the group stage first. But it's seen as a matter of when and not if in terms of the clash between the two nations. They met in the 2018 Grand Final and China won that one 3-1. Revenge on the minds then of Team Korea. But esports are popular among young people, hence their introduction to the Asian Games. And then the Olympics in 2024. It was a demonstration sport in 2018. There'll be 7 gold medals up for grabs in League of Legends, Arena of Valor, Game for Peace, Dota, Dream 3 Kingdoms 2, Street Fighter 5 and FIFA Online 4.
Those games will definitely bring some refreshing scenes at the Asian Games.
Absolutely.
All right, Paul, thank you for that coverage.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Here in South Korea, millennials and Gen Zs are born between 1981 and 2005, and they're well known for their generous spending lifestyle. Well, at least compared to older generations, meaning they are less reluctant to invest and spend more on themselves. Well, they are still doing that, except now they are paying for experience. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the story.
I'm here in central Seoul to see the latest trend of spending big money not on items but on experiences. Young people in South Korea are upgrading classic outings like movies and drinks to more premium experiences.
Fine dining is becoming increasingly popular among the younger generation, and that includes switching out cheap soju for more expensive options like whiskey. A survey conducted by market research company Trend Monitor showed that people in their 20s and 30s had a higher percentage of positive opinions on dining at a premium restaurant than those in older age brackets. And according to research company Euromonitor, growth in whiskey consumption in South Korea was the highest recorded in the world last year, jumping by nearly 46% on year. This has culminated in unique whiskey items catered to younger tastes, such as this bingski, a combination of the word bingsu, which is a Korean dessert made from shaved ice, and whiskey. The sweetness of the bingsu with locally sourced honeycomb and coffee syrup offsets the bitterness of the whiskey. And despite the high cost of 118,000 Korean won, or roughly $88, it's gaining popularity due to the luxurious experience it presents.
Bingski is gaining popularity and has resulted in stores in Seongsu-dong and Hannam-dong, which are often frequented by Gen Zs, specifically selling it.
Whiskey is also being repackaged and reformed in other ways for its new audience. I visited this pop-up store at the heart of Seongsu-dong, the most trendy neighborhood in Seoul. It's designed as a convenience store to make it more accessible to young people, and sells items that enable customers to experience whiskey through smell as well as taste. Scented candles made from whiskey and other ingredients are popular with the customers here, with more than 500 people visiting the store per day during the week to purchase these products.
I think whiskey and highballs are popular with Gen Zs because they feel like a more tasteful way to get drunk.
Another popular upgrade of a common activity between Gen Zs is the movies.
In a cinema like this one, the overall experience is more than just watching a movie.
At this movie theatre, there is a wide range of prestige cinemas that can be enjoyed at a price of between 4 to 5 times that of a normal ticket. You can wine and dine in the restaurant downstairs before making your way up to a cinema set with comfortable armchairs, or you can choose to eat at your seat. There's even a private box, as if you're at the opera, where you can watch a film in a secluded space with a great view.
These premium cinemas used to mostly be filled by people in their 30s and 40s, but now it's also enjoyed by a lot of people in their 20s.
So why are young people choosing to spend their money this way?
The minimalism trend among the millennial and Gen Z generations means that they don't want to buy things to keep. They now value things they can use and experience.
A quintessential part of the Flexperience is sharing and collecting information on social media platforms. And it looks as though the trend will continue to add fuel to the spending culture among youths here in South Korea. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
We thank you for watching Weekly News Highlights. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.